everyone, I'm glad to have this opportunity to be here and show you our group analysis result of Singapore Airlines. Our group members are Liu Gang, Luo Tian, Hao Xi, and me, Liu Cong. In this presentation, we will cover the following points: the introduction of Singapore Airlines, the external and internal analysis, the recommendations for Singapore Airlines, and how to evaluate of our analysis and recommendations. So let's get started with the first point, the introduction of Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines, the flagship airline of Republic of Singapore, officially opened for business on 1947. Its hub is at Singapore Changi Airport, and its logo, as you can see in the slide, is a distinctive yellow bird. Maybe you know this airline because it's highlighting Singaporean girls and high-quality service. But other than this, Singapore Airlines Group has over 20 subsidiaries, including a good deal of aviation-related subsidiaries, such as Singapore Airlines Engineering and the Singapore Airlines Freighter Fleet. Now, let's come to the next point. My group member, Liu Gang, will show you the external analysis.
So hello, I'm Liu Gang. I'm so happy to present the external environment analysis part. So the first case of coronavirus pandemic was reported at the end of 2019. And what followed has been a catastrophic series of events that have impacted the globe. With the WHO taking the reins on the matter of February, the world has witnessed many changes in aviation industry. So now I'm going to talk about the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental part. So for the political aspect, the Singapore government has taken various measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Singapore had an especially strict level to travel restrictions at the start of pandemic. So the economic impact requires consideration of financial impact involving the changes of the contract and the new facilities, as well as consumer demand, which is based on the change of ticket refunds, the bookings, and the cancellations. So the social part, international and domestic travel in the aviation industry has fallen sharply after WHO announced the impact of the pandemic, and the travel restrictions that had to be implemented to prevent the spread of the pandemic. So now I'll talk about the technological. Hygiene measures require social distance and wearing masks. It makes necessary for Singapore's aviation industry to introduce innovative devices that measure people's temperature and promote social distance. So as airport employees are replaced by the smart robots, the safety of passengers and the remaining workforce is guaranteed. So legal and political aspects affecting the aviation industry in Singapore are interconnected as they related to passengers' safety, airport security, taxation, and labor unions. Last, the environmental efficiency of Singapore Airlines has dropped significantly. In this regard, the aviation industry needs environment stewardship to prevent its business from causing a global ecological decline. So next slide, please. Okay, now as you can see, the POTUS 5 framework is shown on PPT. So the threat of substitute should be very low because the main transportation should be land, sea, and air. It's really difficult to create another way to become the main transportation, especially for the long distance travel. The variety among existing firms should be very high because in aviation industry, there are a lot of planned companies, including premier airlines and budget airlines. The bargaining power of buyers should be very high because there are many modes of transportation to choose, and there are many airlines companies to choose from the plan also. Bargaining power of suppliers should be very low because the aviation industry, there are lots of suppliers. Otherwise, Singapore Airlines is big company, so it has strong bargaining powers. Threat of new entrants should be very low because the aviation industry has high investment and technological requires. So please, next slide. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the opportunities and threats. So Singapore Airlines now stopped market expansion and cooperation due to the pandemic, and more countries relaxed border controls. Singapore Airlines choose to increase the frequency of flights in the existing markets and expand its business scope in related industry to increase their revenue. And the threats, some international policy, natural disasters, and wars will also threaten the operation of Singapore Airlines. For example, the global lockdown under the pandemic led to the company to announce cuts about 4,300 jobs in 2020, operation less than 50% of its normal flight schedule. So my part is the end. Thank you so much. Now let's move to Luo Tian to present her part. Thank you.
Thanks, Liu Gang. Hello, everyone. I'm Luo Tian. I have conducted an internal environment analysis of Singapore Airlines. Next slide, please. In this form, I present VRIO analysis and a result. In terms of value of resources and capabilities, Singapore Airlines have high brand equity, innovation, and a strong supply chain. In terms of rarity, Singapore Airlines has real assets like its international presence, remarkable adaptability, and strong leadership. As for inimitability, Singapore Airlines has top-notch customer experience and quality product offering, highly competitive prices, and low-cost operations compared with other competitors. Lastly, for organizational support, the company now has strong and sales promotion, speed of distribution, customer service, employee training, and financial stabilities. Next slide, please. In this slide, I present to you the competitive advantages of Singapore Airlines. Its business model based on a highly cost-effective infrastructure. It enables premium service experience for customers. Furthermore, its innovation of a simultaneous centralized and decentralized manner, leadership position in customer service and experience development, as well as a simultaneous combination of standardization are all its competitive advantages. Next slide. In this slide, I present a simplified value chain of Singapore Airlines. In addition to its strong inbound logistics in international routes, and young fleet enables Singapore Airlines to reduce flight cost via secure flight slots. I want to especially mention its remarkable low cost, high quality operations. The fuel supply was secured by the company by 2 years in advance. So this is the competitive advantages in terms of cost efficiency operations, as ordering fuel 2 years earlier enables the company to avoid cyclical changes of fuel prices. And also Singapore Airlines operations are contributing to its values because its innovation is enhanced by technology and digital transformations. Next slide. Finally, our group come up with the strengths and weaknesses of Singapore Airlines. We think its strengths are reflected in its customer service, human resource management, financial performance, and capital raising ability. Its weaknesses are reflected in the weak operations in Singapore and other Southeast Asian markets, and also reliance on long-haul flights. Now, let's pass it to Hao Xi for the recommendation and conclusion part. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hao Xi. Thank you for my teammate to talk about internal environment analysis. Now let me introduce the part of strategic action plan and conclusion. Developing of strategic action can help to make a better future development of Singapore Airlines. It also makes a new space to break through the existing difficulties of the pandemic area. So we will give some recommendations that could improve Singapore Airlines to be much better in the future. The first recommendation is the internal and external environment are the primary elements that affect Singapore Airlines. External reasons include a sharp drop in overseas flights. To be sustainable, they must cut operating costs. Operating fuel-efficient aircraft is the best approach to minimize carbon emissions. And we can use data analysis and flight operating data to help airline estimate backup fuel need to for target flight. The next recommendation is that they still should prevent and minimize the transmission of COVID-19. At this one, we propose carrying COVID-19 certification to prove they didn't infect. This method applies to all crew members. Race classification can be used to implement different control for crew member protection, in-flight service, and efficient resource allocation. Then, according to VRIO analyze the Singapore Airlines, there has challenged circumstances caused by a weaker global economic or competitive strategy from major rivals. Singapore Airlines need to maintain its dominance and remain an international competitive rival. Its primary method is aviation service innovation strategy. It helps international carriers compete. So next suggestion is how to satisfy consumers with our aircraft service. They should focus on improving service and comforting customers. They can keep it by providing great service or boarding up on time because they need to build and keep customer trust. SIA should utilize better service to replace the existing service. They should balance standardized service and individualized service. Whenever the customer boarded Singapore Airlines, they could enjoy same quality service. That's my fourth suggestion. Next slide, please. In conclusion, we use Singapore Airlines as our brand to do research on global strategy management. Then use PESTEL, analyze and find portals, help analyze threats and opportunities in our research. And we can find strengths and weaknesses with VRIO analysis and the benchmarking methods. At last, we gave some suggestions, including how to make SIA better service and more competitive in the aviation market in the future. That's my part. Thank you. Let my groupmate make an evaluation.
Thank you, Hao Xi. Here, I'd like to talk the last point of our group presentation, the evaluation of our analysis results. Whether our analysis and recommendations are successful, in our opinion, we can use 3 methods to evaluate the performance. First, compare Singapore Airlines financial results with the year before the pandemic. This is a direct way to see Singapore Airlines operation performance. If the financial report is similar to or better than the time before the pandemic, our recommendation can be proved. It is successful. In addition, using a survey to ask customers and employees of Singapore Airlines about their satisfaction with company. In this survey, questions like how do you think the changes of Singapore Airlines and is it more convenient and faster to you to solve problems with Singapore Airlines will be given. From this, we can clearly know the customers and employees' attitude to the new changes in Singapore Airlines. Moreover, it is feasible to evaluate the rate of new passengers and new business customers. It is also a markable symbol to our recommendations. If more new passengers and business customers come out, our recommendation is useful to Singapore Airlines. Well, that brings me to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.